Bold, daring, unpredictable. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. with Robert Vaughn and David McCallum. Friday at 8:30, 7:30 Central Time on NBC.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
His paintings redefined comic book heroes. His vision inspired a generation. The Legend of Kingdom Come is the definitive documentary on Alex Ross, known as the Norman Rockwell of comics.
It almost looked like Renaissance paintings, except for superheroes.
He makes them look like Olympian gods.
We go behind the scenes of his definitive graphic novel, Kingdom Come, now on Blu-ray, packed with exclusive interviews and unseen artwork. Order today at legendofkingdomcome.com.
If you're here at Word Balloon, it's because you like comics, creators, conversation, pop culture subjects. Would you consider joining the League of Word Balloon Listeners? Patreon.com/wordballoon. For just $3 a month or more, you'll get exclusive access to the Word Balloon e-magazine, featuring transcriptions of some of my best conversations. When you subscribe, you'll also be part of the Word Balloon Book Club, where Brian Michael Bendis and I will pick a comic every month to review and discuss live with the League on this show. Join the League today, patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you always for your support, League of Word Balloon listeners. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suncher is here. Look at them vamping there on the right. It's the Bonds, everybody. There you go. It's Philip and Shelly Bond. Good to see you guys. How are you?
Hello, everybody.
Hey, I was told that we had to show up with glasses on, John. Where are your glasses? No?
No.
Philip, thanks. Okay. Hi.
Hey, it's Shelly Bond. Good to see you.
It really is.
Oh, man, I'm excited to talk today, guys. The closing days of a successful Kickstarter, but happy to add the Word Balloon, hopefully push to get a few shekels in before the deadline happens. And It's this, everybody. 100 FAQs. There you go. We love those shekels. 100 FAQs on making comics, featuring some fantastic Philip Bond art and thoughts of both of you. And I know, Philip, you're going to be heading to the dentist. I want, well, you told me, so I got to.
How exciting.
Isn't that the classic excuse? I have a dentist appointment.
Yeah,
no, I can't do that.
The number one freelancer excuse. Sorry, I'll be at the dentist getting a filling.
Yeah, but I'm going to give you half an hour of my time, and then go under the drill.
Well, I'm going to cut right to it, Phil, and ask you. Because from an art standpoint, I would think one of the toughest things to quantify, especially as opposed to really mentoring somebody, would be storytelling. And I wonder how much your tips, involve storytelling.
My tips. Really, this book is Shelley's tips, really, and I'm sort of coming in to advise on the art side, I guess. It's really sort of all the questions that come up like during the entire production of a comic, and I think a lot of the art side Shelley is very sort of familiar with already. I think it's sort of it's sort of goes to her kind of visual acuity, as she always says. Like understanding the visuals is as important as being really good at it.
But I think we have to be honest, especially with John.
Yeah, with everybody.
John, even though Philip might say that these are not his tips on making comics, he's my best editor. And he is not going to let me get away with just garbage replies. So even though I've already written the manuscript, right? This is it, John. I wanted to prove to you that I'm no faker. It's vetted through this guy, whether he's drawing it or not. And I'm just so happy he's agreed to draw it.
Yeah, I think it's both of our sort of 20, 25 years experience together, as well as sort of like the 10, 15 years beyond that. It's sort of this is our sort of understanding of what makes comics great.
And I
Did
think
you? No, continue, Shell, please.
I
You're
was
the
just
one with the
gonna say,
knowledge.
the truth of the matter is, look, this is how we make comics.
Yes.
And we have certain rules and expectations and standards that maybe are sky high to some people, but to us, they just work for us. So what we're hoping is that people that pick up this book, first of all, we made it cheap. You know, people always say, my God, you have over 800 backers. You could be in the money right now. You could be so loaded, but no, we make these books because we can. And we want to just pass along all the things that we've learned over the past 3 decades making comics. So for the most part, we hope people will read it because they're intrigued and they're interested. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is encourage people to take what works for them and then come up with their own rules and standards, but just get out there and stop being Chicken Little and make your own comics.
Do you think it's easier as far as getting the book, you know, your thoughts in a comic book form out there than ever before?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's I think we've got sort of we have our methods now, yeah. And we managed to get stuff out, and yeah, it's distribution is always a problem, but
well, certainly off register and what you guys have done, and I want to know how many campaigns you have, but I really meant the beginner that might be afraid to jump in and how easy it is.
Sure. It's I mean, we're not the best example of like a successful comics business, but it depends how you measure success. You know, like getting books out is a success for us.
Yeah.
You know, doing what we want, and
with no gatekeepers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sort of like going around all the big publishers, even the little publishers, and sort of like navigating our way through you know, distribution by doing a lot of it online and through Kickstarters and through the sort of the small scale distribution that we have at with PowerPulp, yeah.
And also, I think it's fair to say we've worked out specific ways that we interact with printers. And, you know, as much as I can value and respect, you know, the big companies, I don't like hurry up and wait. I've done that in my career. I've spent 22 and a half years doing that. So now when we want to make books,
it's all hurry up.
Yeah, right. It's all let's go. I mean, because to me, for people that are listening who are new and just want to be a part of the comic scene, it is easier now than ever. There are no excuses, but you need to have no fear and you need to read the fine print. And those are 3 words that come up a lot in 100 FAQ, because a lot is lost for people that just want to kind of come in and have everything go their way and make a comic and print a comic and make it a 200-page opus and put it out in a month. Not going to happen. The best thing you can do if you want to make comics is try your hand at all the stages. And then if you want to do crowdfunding, go to the websites, read the fine print. You want to work with printers? On every printer website, there are so many useful tools, and so often you can schedule appointments to meet with representatives on Zoom. You have to do the legwork, but it will be worth your while. And you also have to make sure that you know you're going to screw up, because every stage of making comics is about making mistakes and still moving forward.
Okay. Would you say that it is that understanding that you really want people to understand every step involved, and you do want them to think about everything, and not just perhaps just doing a web comic, but also obviously you're taking them all the way through the printers and everything. That's cool. You know.
Absolutely. I mean, basically, we've wanted to do a book like this for a number of years, and stuff happens. You know, we've been working on other jobs, and this just seemed like the timing was right. So we jumped in together. And the best way for me to like figure out like how am I going to structure a book is to break it down in chapters and be real specific. So we've got 5 chapters, 20 questions and answers each. And it starts out quite simply with idea and story, which also includes script. And from there, we have art. And by art, we mean layouts, roughs, thumbnails, penciling, and inking. Chapter 3, which I hope people will appreciate, is lettering and ballooning. And ballooning, people, is the #1 most overlooked stage of people making comics. So important. I'm not even going to tell you what it means, but I will explain it in the book. But ballooning, lettering, and coloring is its own chapter because those are often areas that don't get the same amount of attention as script and art. But after that, we've got pre-press, which also includes proofreading, and printing, working with your printer. And then the 5th category, which is one of my favorites, is industry and professionalism. Because a lot of making comics is about not being a jerk. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that seems like that seems I like thinking of, like, as you were just saying that, I like, and having read the manuscript, all the questions, it seems like a lot of that last chapter is don't be a jerk.
I get it because again, this is a small enough community that if you are a good person, you know, obviously it's going to make it that much easier to introduce yourself and your product to the community. And the great thing is the community is here to help. For example, look who's already joining us in the chat.
Oh boy.
Gail Simone
and Dean.
How about that?
And Dean Haspel. Oh my God. One of those 2 people is an absolute favorite comic book artist. And the other person, I don't know. She doesn't know how to eat steak. We've got a story. Gail and I have a story that goes way back. How I insulted her husband by ordering a steak. Well done. But we'll get to that later. I'm teasing Gail. But I am delighted to have them both here. And also, I see we have some other people that joined us that are some newer people, and you all rock. Thank you for taking time out of your day to hang with us.
Absolutely.
Oh, Gail, toughen up, Buttercup. That's what I have to say.
Say. I got to say, though, as my father was a restaurateur, and I like a well-done steak as well, but I have learned over the years, yeah, you're burning it. So, yeah, I get it. I do understand. So she's right. She isn't wrong about that. But that's hilarious. You know, honestly, Philip, at the grocery store, you'll forgive my British question, but I saw HP sauce, and I've only seen it in British commercials. So can you compare it to other steak sauces? Is it like an A1 as far as its taste, or
it's
Heinz?
Spicier.
Is it spicier?
I think so.
But it's just a different taste, and you don't need to put it on a steak. You can put it on your chips. By which
man, I might do that.
By which French fries.
Oh, you just like sort of use it instead of ketchup or mix. Yeah. I like if it's available. I like a little dollop of ketchup, a little dollop of HP.
All right, Gail's still hanging on it, man. It was apparently at Morton's, everybody. That it was a well-done steak. Oh, there you go. And Gail has a thought on HP. She says it tastes better. It tastes like A1 that somebody kept in their pants.
Ew, that is super gross. I never knew you were so gross. Much.
Come on. Exactly. We've hung out with her enough. We all know. It's well known. But no, also, you know, again, you guys have pretty exclusively gone with Kickstarter. Have you considered the other crowdfunding platforms when you do your things for off-register?
We're always like looking for the better option, the less destructive, the less sort of selling your soul option. And like right now, like there are other crowdfunding sites, but Kickstarter's been good for us. That they haven't, they didn't go all in on the Bitcoin thing, and
have some of them done that? I had no idea, Philip. Truly,
we have a big audience there. That's like a ready-made audience.
Well, that's the other thing. You guys have grown your community, I suppose.
Yeah.
At Kickstarter and
Well,
everything.
and what's interesting, I'm happy Gail showed up today, because Gail was a part of my very first Kickstarter with Brian and Christy Miller. It's the 10th anniversary. Gail, can you believe it? 10th anniversary of Femme Magnifique.
Wow.
Yes.
That's great.
Gail had
awesome.
a story.
Yeah.
And she wrote a story about Kate Bush, which was illustrated by Marguerite Sauvage. And wow. Yeah, I can't believe that was 10 years ago. Gail, you don't look any older from where I'm sitting. Well, I can't really see you. But you don't look any older from the comment section today. But yeah, we really value and respect the people that have supported us all these years. And so all I can say to people that want to start crowdfunding and making their own comics is you just got to be straight up. You got to deliver on your promise. And when things go wrong, mess up, fess up, move forward. Words to live by, wouldn't you say, Philip?
Yeah. Another one of your go-to maxims. Yeah, mess up, fess up.
Which I'm sure.
Move on.
I'm sure I actually got, and just another one from my father, who we've talked about many times on this podcast, who may or may not be listening. But we're very, very excited about 100 FAQ, because honestly, it's the kind of book. It's 128 pages. It is dirt cheap, and by dirt cheap, I mean it's $10 digital, $15 for the book, and we've already obliterated 2 stretch goals.
Yeah. So you also get stickers and what was the other stretch goal that we have already? Oh, the zine. Yes, the poster zine, which we're really excited about.
This is really cool. We have designed together, by the way, we have designed a way to actually present our work as an 11 by 17 poster.
Yeah, this isn't the one you're going to get with the book.
No, this is the format.
Kind of a prototype.
It's a prototype format, and we also show process. And for this particular project, we're looking at the poster as more of an almanac. So it's sort of the filth and grammar cheat.
Yeah, this is going to be.
Come on, I apologize. It's the filth and grammar cheat sheet. I apologize, everybody.
That's okay. It's sort of like the filth and grammar cheat sheet. It's all the information that you need to know at your fingertips. But if for some reason your cat ate your book, you've got a handy poster you can put up on your wall to remember that if you're going to press, and Gail Simone, this is for you, don't use RGB. It's CMYK. You always want to use CMYK. What is the book, please, Gail?
Yeah.
The book is 100 FAQ on making comics with me, but also with Philip, because he draws a whole lot better than I draw.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's like basically like I think most of the questions in there are going to have like a spot illustration like that, and then there's a couple of longer 4-panel comics that are a treat to do, to turn your pen to.
And I think as I was talking about before Gail came in to start talking about well done steak and HP sauce, etc., I was kind of mentioning how I'm a real sort of structure person when it comes to putting together a book and designing a book. So we've got the 5 chapters, and with each chapter, we get a 4-panel illustration from this guy, because we needed to have comics in here, not just spot illos. We can't help ourselves.
As much fun as the spot illos are.
Yes, and in fact, Philip was just
having a blast with those. They're like some real fun things. Like working with. I'm sorry, taking over.
No, you're.
I'm like
you're going to the dentist.
I'm going to the dentist.
Yeah, exactly, man. We want your thoughts before you leave.
I think sort of. I can recall like a spot where I was like just sort of like trying to sort of get through some of the looking at the questions, like drawing these little sketches and things, and I suddenly sort of like had a split there where I was trying to draw Shelly like like I've got to try and be flattering all the time.
Oh,
Obviously.
geez. Oh, my God. Yes.
But at
I
one
would
point,
cry.
at one point, I just sort of like digressed and just went like, this isn't Shelley. This is a cartoon character now. So she's a cartoon character. This is the real Shelley. Then there's the cartoon version.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
no, you've established a look, Phil. Absolutely, man. No, it's in other off-register books.
Oh, she's in it. Yeah, most of the books. Yeah.
Well, you're the Alfred E. Newman of off-register, Shell. I don't know how to break it to you. You know.
Yeah.
What?
How about that?
What?
How flattering was that?
That was so not flattering. What me?
What me worry? Exactly.
Insulted? Oh no.
Come on.
The greatest thing about having Philip as, once again, my partner in art and comics crimes is that he gets a little break from Geezer, which, by the way, if anyone has had a chance to look at Geezer, it is just chock full of comic book goodness. But it takes him a long time because Philip Bond doesn't take the shortcut on the crowd scene. Every person at every gig in this comic has a very particular way of holding themselves. They have a very particular drink that they're drinking.
I know.
Their hairstyles are specific. But
this is why I'll never create sort of like big long comics like that again.
But wait,
it's just like every character in the background, like to me, they all have a little backstory.
Yeah, they all have a different record collection.
Yeah,
they're not all as good as mine.
You know, you have to figure out why people are wearing a certain kind of shoes and all that kind of thing. This is like I have to work like this for like scenes with like 300 people in the background. So like they all have characters. They could all have a comic book spin-off.
But I can honestly say, Philip, that truly it is that detail that is in the Geezer books that immediately transports me back to that period. And I mean, and you know, it's so great. I live in enough of a hip neighborhood where there are still kiosks and posts where people are putting up Xerox handbills of upcoming bands and plays and things like that. But no, man, you really, again, you take me back to that new wave era very easily. Again, that we're all veterans of. Yep. So we all know what to expect, but you deliver, man. And that's why I'm glad you're wearing the Geezer shirt. Forgive me, guys. I didn't grab any Geezer covers to help promote. But man, so how much longer?
I should say if people like the art in this book, go and buy Geezer as well.
Yes,
it's always available through our website.
Also, it's just this great story about this band that is going through that new wave period, and you see them from a touring standpoint, from a record company standpoint, and everything that they're going through. And again, man, luckily, I think sadly, as much as the music business has changed, a lot has stayed the same. So I think even young people that are enjoying music today would absolutely relate to this kind of band experience.
I hope so. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. But here's the key difference between Geezer
and
what Philip's doing on 100 FAQ.
Yeah.
He's actually drawing on paper. And by drawing on paper, I mean he's sitting in front of the TV with his sketchbook. And for a guy who's 6'1", he draws like the size of a matchbook.
Yeah, these are tiny little drawings.
These are tiny drawings, but they're magnificent.
Yeah, it's nice sort of when I'm not working on like full page comics, which on Geezer I'm doing all digitally. It's nice to be able to just work on just a little piece of paper on a clipboard. I'm just like sat in front of the TV, just doing these little drawings and sort of like do a drawing, next one, look at the script.
Interesting.
Drawing. Yeah, so it's really cool. It's fun to work like that.
That's cool. What other art as far as theory, big word, but you know what I'm saying? Like what art advice are you giving and conveying in the book, Philip?
What art advice am I giving them in the book? I don't know.
Well, I think
it's hard to pinpoint, really.
I think there are a lot.
Mine's all over the place. There's sort of like little additions all over the place.
Okay.
I think that first and foremost, be consistent. You got to draw every day. You want to be a writer, and I'm going to quote the great Gail Simone. Write. You got to write. You know, you can read 1 million books on how to write, how to draw. You got to cap it at some point.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're going to be a reader and you're not going to be a great writer or a great artist. So be consistent and write and draw and make things every day. But
yeah, I think, can I just say, like,
please.
when you ask about advice for artists as well, it's a lot of this is theory. And it's all about looking at things, whether you're a writer or an artist. Just like look at things all the time, look at things, listen to things, and things come from outside of comics all the time. That's
right. And also, I think it's important. Like, I'm a big fan of deconstructing lots of things, especially comics. I love to break them apart and to see how they were made and then put them back together differently. I think that when it comes to art, there's something else that's important, because we have chapters that focus on pre-press, proofreading, and production. 3 Ps. I know, alliteration, but these are areas that I don't think are covered as often as they should be. So we do talk about printer specs. We talk about naming conventions, because if you're working with a printer, you have to label your files. So there are some technical things that I think people making comics might not be aware of. So we hope in this book, not only will you get basic stuff like, what's my favorite plot, for instance, which I thought was like an oddball question, but I had a lot of fun with it. We also have just like tips, like things you should know that you probably don't know, because it might be the first time you're working with an overseas printer. Stuff like that. So it's stuff you might have heard before.
Like millimeters.
Millimeters. I've never heard that before.
The conversion, yes, certainly the conversion for an international printer, absolutely.
But we do, and we talk about A4 and A5 versus your standard American comic book size versus 6x9, which is a format that we quite like, that we've been using a lot.
This book is 6x9, isn't it?
I kind of figured, based on what you guys sent me art-wise and stuff, I did kind of figure that's what we're doing.
And it's a limited palette too, which I love.
Yeah.
The limited palette, we wanted it to just look cool, and we picked those specific colors for a reason. Of course, we have the editor's red, which, if in case anyone cares, and I kind of think Dean Haspiel will care about this, the editor's red is in my red. I call it Carrez red because I'm a fan of the fashion, but it's 100% magenta, and it's 100% yellow, and it's 10% blue.
Okay. Interesting.
And Gail says she has to run, but she wants to take a moment to say something before she leaves. So please, John, I want you to put on your Gail Simone voice. Put on your.
I don't have a Gail Simone voice. I wish they did.
Oh my goodness.
All she does is correct me when I would call her shears scissors. They're shears.
Oh, right.
I love it.
I absolutely respect. That's
Gail,
all right.
what does she know about your Brian Ferry story? That's all I care about.
We'll let Gail hear that at the end of the show. That's all right. She'll have to rewind for that. We don't want to interrupt the flow. Is this your question, Gail? All right. Okay. Here's the All right, Gail. It's not a Burma shave. Say the damn thing. You don't have to give us the wind up. You're not pitching a no hitter here.
Exactly. Go for it.
While I have her attention. Oh wait. Oh, she says if they're $400, they're shears. But if I have her attention,
right.
I do want to include Gail in my word balloon book. It would be great to get a new interview, but if not, I certainly want to use our old ones to compile a chapter on Gail. I certainly want Shelly in the book as well. Shelly also, while we're waiting for the one, and of course Philip, because he's a brilliant artist.
I'm going to be at the dentist by the time this question comes up.
He's going to be under the drill, Gail. Come on.
Okay, here's the question. It's like talking to your grandmother. All right, Granny, let's get to the point. Let's get. Wait, this might be it. Oh, here we go. Oh, Clean Room is her favorite book I ever worked on, and Shelly was one of the very best editors I ever worked with. So is that a question or a comment, Gail?
That's a statement.
Whoa.
That's yeah.
My heart has wings.
That's a full quote.
And eternally grateful. That's cool.
I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. And I'm going to send one to Gail and one to John and one to the guy who burned my steak at Morton's. Philip is terrible. Yeah. Philip is terrible, though. All right. I want a rematch.
I'm done. I'm out of here.
I want a rematch on that dinner.
Are you out of here? All right. Good luck, Phil.
Philip is terrible, then. It just gets worse.
It does get worse.
It's
All
a
right.
comic.
Thank you, Philip.
Yeah,
We
Phil.
won't fill out you
Great
too
seeing you,
much.
man. All the best. Drill
All
well.
right.
I hope the dentist gives you good drugs to get you through it. So thanks, Gail, for commenting. But
Thank you, Gal.
Shelly and I will continue. Shell, honestly, yes, and then wishes you good luck on the book. That's very nice.
Aw.
Well, honestly, Shell, you come from obviously this point of expertise. Your years at Vertigo, your years at IDW, and as you know, I was just talking to Diana Schutz the other day, and we were talking about how you have taken over Diana's courses over at Portland State, right?
She made me. She basically said she designed a course on editing comics and taught it for one semester, decided that she wanted to focus more on translating, and told me that I need to take over the class. And if you know Diana, and I know you do, you don't say no to Diana. I am getting a weird here.
Yeah, I'm hearing some weird stuff in the background. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, let me just see.
All right, no problem. While you're doing that, we'll acknowledge some comments from everybody here. Anja points out some of your favorite, his favorite stuff that you've edited, Shell, and that is like Sandman Mystery Theater, Shade, Hellblazer, and of course American Century. I'm a big Chaykin and Tishman fan. Oh, what happened, Philip?
He came back real quickly to see what's going on with the reverb.
Oh, thanks, man.
Echo. Easy for you to say when you're at the dentist.
My technical advice would be ignore it.
Wow.
All right, yeah, I think we're okay now. It's cleared up, I guess.
Okay.
So, but
well, thank you to
yeah,
the person who said Sandman Mystery Theater, Shade, Hellblazer, and American Century. Chaykin Tishman and Mark Lehman.
Yeah, that was a really great combination, and it is probably one of my favorite odd. There's a cat. Which cat is it, buddy? Which cat?
This is our editorial intern who actually makes her comics debut in 100 FAQ. There she is.
Congrats, Piper. Very nice. Are you on the cover?
Yes.
Oh wait, I know. I think I've got the other photo, or at least on the Kickstarter page.
She was on the banner, so yeah, she's on the cover too, and she makes quite a few appearances. We've been cat parents for the past 4 months, and it's the best thing ever.
Excellent. But yeah, so obviously, I would imagine I would imagine teaching the courses maybe added to thoughts on the 100 FAQs. Would I be right?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going back into my 4th year teaching film grammar for Portland State University. And I'm teaching comics editing using my book. And again, that was at Diana's insistence. And what's interesting is that she had a syllabus worked out, and she said, use what you want. But she told me to use my book as well. So it's a bit of both.
That's cool. So, and forgive me, is the editing course called Filth and Grammar, or just the textbook, or are you teaching 2 different courses?
Well, first of all, I will forgive you. I'm teaching one course, and it's called Comics Editing because it's what Diana called it when she designed the course.
Yeah.
But the book Filth and Grammar is one of the textbooks.
Gotcha. That's cool. And honestly, I'll make a banner, but remind people where they can buy the off-register books.
Oh, sure. No problem. The name of our company is offregister.press. So it was named offregister.press. So you wouldn't have any confusion about where to find us or the books.
Excellent. I'm taking care of that right now. And hold on.
There is a weird echo. Thank you, people in the comments. I'm finding that echo to be really like exhausting. And if Philip were sitting here, he wouldn't be able to ignore it. So I wonder if I should sign off.
Can you grab earbuds, Shell? And maybe that would help if we're on a speaker.
I might They're not handy.
I don't know if you had a hand up. They're not handy. Because yeah, we didn't hear them, everybody, when we were doing it. And I don't hear it as I'm
Okay.
hearing
How
my
about
end.
now?
No, it's, again, I'm not hearing a difference either way.
I turned the volume down a little bit. It seems a little bit easier.
Okay.
Sorry about this, people. Thank you
Yeah,
for those
I'll speak.
comments. And whenever I see the word echo, all I want to do is talk about Echo and the Bunnymen, but we won't do that. Maybe we'll do that later.
Oh, come on. Absolutely. What are you talking about? Now I'm blanking. Faith up against the wind. Right? Isn't that Echo and the Bunnymen?
See, now I can't hear you. Will you sing that again, please?
I think
on.
I was singing Killer Moon.
Yes.
Isn't that Echo and the Bunnymen?
The killing time,
Yes.
unwillingly mine.
See, I liked Ultravox a little bit more than I liked Echo and the Bunnymen. I got to
Well,
be honest.
that's a shame, John. I like Ultravox too, but they're like this and that, this and this. Come on.
I understand. And I like the Church, Unguarded Moment.
Not so much.
No? All right.
You and I might have some problems later.
Well, the good news was that if we worked at the same college radio station at the same time, there would have been room on the playlist for both of our tastes. So that's the good news.
Absolutely. And we could have gone head to head, like we could have had like the Clash versus Elvis Costello night, right?
Oh, there would have been room for both. Why is there? Well, I would imagine you're more of a Clash person than an Elvis Costello person.
Duh.
Yeah.
In the words of Gail Simone, duh.
I just saw somebody posted on either Instagram or Facebook a piece of the Pump It Up video, and it's just them playing. But man, the best. Although you see, unlike Shell, who is happy to see the same act a million times, I saw Elvis so many times in the 90s that I guess I've become jaded. So now when he comes to town, I'm like, yeah, I did that. It's been done.
I've been there.
Yeah, Any cool shows lately?
Oh, I wish. The last
No?
great show we went to was Suede in 2022, Hollywood Palladium.
Cool.
Philip and I gobsmacked the whole time. Just could not believe just how brilliant they are, because we've seen them before and they were good, but nothing like what they are now. It's incredible. Definitely a favorite band. But no, we don't get out to gigs because, John, somebody has to stay up all night and make the comics.
Make the comics. I understand.
That would
Absolutely.
be us. That would be
So
us.
literally, we're down to the last couple of days, right, for this campaign.
Yes. I think we have 2 days left, and we are so close to squashing the third stretch goal, which is an iron-on of the coolest cat design. It's Piper, who you guys met for 20 seconds. And Philip came up with a pencil and red pen. So it's sort of like Piper and cross pencil and pens, sort of like the skull. I don't have it handy, but it's sort of like the Filth and Grammar skull and cross pens, but with a cat.
Oh, okay. So it's not this, obviously, him in the box.
It's not that, but it's a great image, and it's the kind of image that you want to put on the side of your jacket or on a t-shirt, and it's a vinyl iron-on. I've worked with this company before. They do brilliant work. So we need these. So all we need is an extra, I think, $2,000. When we crush 25K, everyone who buys the book, the physical copy of the book, and maybe even Gail Simone, gets the iron-on. But only if she's nice. Only if she remains nice to me.
Well, that's great. And again, Philip mentioned it as well, that usually when you get an off-register press book, they load it up with stickers and little tchotchkes all over the place and everything. So,
we do, and we do our own fulfillment as well. And that's something else that I go over in 100 FAQ on Making Comics. 100 questions, it sounds like a lot. It really isn't, because when you get in there and you've got 5 chapters, 20 questions per chapter, I want to hit the obvious things. And so in structuring this book, when I say the obvious things, the basics, there are 5 things that I've winnowed down that I answer in each section. Because I think, everybody that I ever meet, whether it's at conventions or my students in my comics editing classes or people on the street, you know, when you start saying you work in comics, the first thing they ask you is, oh, how do you get into comics? How do you break in? How would I become a writer? How would I become an editor? We cover the bases. I think people always want to know, what's the number one amateur error that you see people make all the time? Hey, amateur error listed in every section of this book. The other thing people want to know is, what do you wish you knew when you first broke into the business? So there are 5 questions that I consider the basics that you wish someone would have told you 10 years ago. You're in the industry and you had no idea you were making that mistake for so long, and that every editor, shakes when they see your pitch come in or whatever. I'm not going to give away too much here, John. I don't want to give away the whole book, but
Oh no, of course not.
I do promise that there will be things that you expect from a book about making comics that sells itself as know the basics, avoid the blunders. But it's the oddball questions that I think are a lot of fun. And I think that's what Philip is enjoying as far as illustrations, because
That's
it's letting him flex.
Would you say to someone who's getting started, you both mentioned it earlier, that you don't want them, people shouldn't think about their 200-page magnum opus. So do you think it's better to start small with like a 6-page story? Is that long enough? Or
a 1-page story?
How about a
4-panel comic? How about a two-panel comic? You know, the best thing you can do when you want to start making comics is start small. You want to be able to finish. You know, if you have dreams of working for Marvel or IDW or yourself, you have to prove to everyone around you, and especially yourself, that you can finish what you start. And that's why it's so important to just, crack your knuckles and jump in there, because you're going to mess up. You are going to get red and black ink on your hands. So what? One of my students a few years ago said, make beautiful garbage. And I thought, I need that on a t-shirt.
Ooh, I like
but
that.
It's really true. You can't really understand a hobby, an industry, until you open your eyes, read the fine print, talk to people who are doing the jobs you know nothing about, learn the parlance, and then just get on with it. We all have stories to tell. And for those of us who can't draw well, I mean, think about me, how intimidated I am when I look to my right most of the time and I see my favorite artist. But I tell my students, who are mostly English majors, if you can draw shapes, and if you can't draw a circle and a square, get a template. I mean, come on. You can make comics. And they all panic and they say, oh God, we can't do this. And I'm like, well, you were going to do a 1-page comic, and so am I. Because it would be wrong of me to make all the students write and draw and letter and color and proofread and assemble our anthology book if I didn't write and draw a comic too. So part of my class is having the students pitch me their comics, and then I pitch the class 3 ideas. So I practice what I preach. And when I give advice, like I do in this book, I just say to people, just stop making excuses. Comics to me is the ultimate art form, because we can make urgent art. Not all of us can play guitar, rhythm guitar, like Joe Strummer or Prince, or fill in your favorite guitarist. John, who's your favorite guitarist?
Mark Knopfler.
All right. Okay, very good. So that's a little trickier. I mean, I've tried 3 times to play the guitar. It's not working. Hasn't worked for 59 years. I don't think I'm going to be a guitar, player, but I'm going to make comics because no one can stop me.
Is finding an artist always seems to be a recurring question that I get. And in fact, even one of my patrons at Patreon asked me, and he's like, do you have any suggestions? Do you cover that in 100 FAQ?
I do. So much of this is about community. And when I say the best time to make comics is now, it's because of that. You can find your tribe just by opening up your eyes. There are so many different places online where you can join communities of people who make comics. There's also your local library. You know, there are places around you, and there are people you will meet just by going to the right places online. I do give a couple of different places to check out, but I think most people, there are art schools usually, or community colleges, high school art teachers to get in touch with, who know that they have students that are exceptional. A lot of the time people say, well, I can't afford to pay anyone. There's advice about that too, because while I do think it's important for money to be exchanged for services, sometimes when you're starting out and you're completely broke, the best thing you can do is barter and do an exchange of services, like an exchange of time. So believe me, I'm not in the money over here. Everything we make goes back into making comics. So I have a deal with certain people that I work with. Right now I run filthandgrammar.com, which is kind of like a similar thing where I'm teaching how to make comics. My video editor, Oliver Mertz, is also a writer and a colorist, and he and I have an exchange of services. So I edit some of his work, and in return, he cuts all of my video clips. So to me, when you meet like-minded people who have a similar sensibility, the best thing you can do is offer up an exchange of time and services. So this is the kind of stuff you're going to find in this book.
Excellent. I've got the link to the Kickstarter in the chat, and there it is on screen for people who are watching and listening. That's where you can find it if you go to the Word Balloon YouTube channel, and you'll be able to find it there. So there you go. No, and again, like I said, that does seem to be the big question that I always get. Here, Ange has another question. He says, whenever time for Q's, wondering how much. Main DC hovered over Vertigo books starring mainstream characters like Wesley Dobbs or Shade the Changing Man. Yeah, when there were Vertigo versions.
We were living in the halcyon days of comics, and we got little to no drama from DC proper because Karen Berger knew how to run the ship, and we trusted her instincts and she trusted ours. And there were times where we might run something by a DCU editor, but for the most part, we were like having the best time, really pushing boundaries, really being the provocateurs of comics. There was nothing like being a Vertigo editor in the 90s and 2000s. And I feel lucky that I was a part of that original Vertigo. I was the last official Vertigo staff member in. I joined the team as an editorial assistant in December of 1992, and I was the final original member who walked the plank in 2016. And if you want to know my story, I've written it. I have the graphic memoir trilogy, which starts with Filth and Grammar, but continues with Fast Times in Comic Book Editing, which I think is my favorite of the graphic memoir trilogies, because the 90s, I was living the life, 26 on top of the world, living in Midtown Manhattan, broke like everyone else, still owe my dad some money for helping me with my rent, but making comics 24/7, rolling out of bed. I walked a 6-block radius from DC Comics, took the cheapest apartment in Hell's Kitchen, almost died, not really, but it was a doorman building. I tricked my dad into letting me take it. And those were my most incredible years, I think, making comics. I Doppelganger is the third part of the trilogy, and super proud of it, but its subtitle is Portrait of the Comic Book Editor in the 21st Century. And a lot of it is about how things were getting so great for women in comics all through the 90s, all through the early parts of the 2000s. And not unlike our political environment, things sort of turned and changed for the worst. And it just became a vile dumpster fire in a lot of ways. So I am still here making comics, promoting comics that are all about diversity, because if there's anything Karen Berger's Vertigo did best, it was celebrating and honoring new voices in writers and artists and editors. And I think that was the strength of the original Vertigo, was that Karen knew that her point of view was one thing and it was tremendous, but she was really smart about hiring editors with different points of view who could specialize in different areas, whether it was crime comics, whether it was, what I favored, which was Britpop, of course, but so many other things. And I will always be grateful that I had a place in that original Vertigo.
I understand. No, it was a great run of books. We're all watching to see what the new Vertigo line is going to look like as it rolls out this year. They made the big announcements. Kittens, pardon me. Good question. Regarding your books, Shell, the style of I, Doppelganger is very different from the other two. Not featuring other artists like the previous. Still great, but any reason for that?
Interesting question. Well, I really only focused on two of the young artists who have been working with me for the past few years. Imogen Mangle, of course, was one of the main artists on Fast Times. And Lindsay Thomason, who goes by Lid Tom or Art by Lid, she was the other artist in the book. And, honestly, I was just so happy with how both young artists evolved through collaborating together. And I felt like they both captured exactly what I wanted to say. So with a few exceptions, I think David Hahn did a wonderful one-page tribute to Bike Club and my time working with David Tishman on many projects like American Century, who someone brought up earlier, Greatest Hits. I could go on. I just felt like keeping those two artists as the main artists was the right vibe. Putting those books together, getting to write them and art direct them, and then doing the graphic design and assembly was probably the greatest joy I've ever had in making comics. I've always been a frustrated graphic designer and art director, and that's an important part of being an editor. But I was laughed at when I was at DC Comics when people would say I was a frustrated art director. Well, I took that as a compliment. And that's also what I try to do when I teach. You can't come to editing and say, oh, I can't draw. I'm just going to look at the words. You can't come to editing and not have the guts and do the research if you don't know what the difference is between Painterly and Ben-Day Dot. It's all there for you. You just have to ask the right questions, but you have to have an open mind. And like I said, it's all there now more than ever. There are courses you can take. I think Comics Experience offers some really terrific courses on learning how to color, learning how to use Photoshop and InDesign and Illustrator. And by the way, Philip and I taught ourselves how to use those programs. Philip's the master. I'm still the junior in the office, and I don't mind because he makes everything I do look that much better.
Oh, no, finish your thought, Shell. Pardon.
No, I was just going to say, but find your tribe, find your community. And that's exactly what we do with filthandgrammar.com as well. I've got deluxe subscribers, I've got standard subscribers, but it's networking. It's creating these wonderful groups of people who have similar interests, and it's all about the happy compromise. It's never going to be your way or the highway. I think when you make comics, you just have to respect the collaboration and to remember that everything is liquid until it's not. And the only time it's not is when you say roll press. You hit that print button. You give the thumbs up to your printer after you look at the proofs. And by God, my piece of advice to anyone who wants to make comics is proofread on paper at size. I beg you, because the number one amateur error from where I'm sitting is when you go from a web comic to a print comic and no one tells you that your font is not going to be readable. Ask questions. You want to read fine print.
Well, again, that's something that Kupperberg and I were talking about regarding panel size and reduction. And we were talking about Joe Orlando, the great EC and DC editor and artist. And talking to others like Marty Pasco and that, he told me that Joe could just instinctively look at the larger draft board page and point at something in a panel and go, yeah, that's not going to show up once we reduce it. So you got to redraw that. That kind of thing. And also panel composition.
Yes.
I don't know, page composition. Yeah. I mean, how did
Aspect
you
ratio.
learn as an editor? Yeah. Aspect ratio, but also even panel composition in terms of, layouts and everything. Yeah. You know, again, I learned by doing. I mean, who taught you?
Yeah. Well, listen, when I was an editorial assistant, I asked a ton of questions, and people were nice to me because they knew I was serious. You know, I would always make sure that anything that I said I would do, I got the job done on time and maybe a little bit more. So once you prove you're serious and you prove that you're not afraid to get your hands dirty, so much of it is when people go to college and get degrees, you know, there's a pedigree that comes with that. But sometimes those are the same people that don't want to take out the trash, that don't want to stuff the envelopes and put on the stamps. Well, guess what? You got to be a team player when you're in a business like comics, just like you had mentioned way earlier in the podcast, the music industry. You know, you kind of have to be able to go out and get the coffee if you want to do all the mixes, right? You want to do the final mix on something. You've got to show that you respect every job and every person in every job. You can't be a diva, and you just can't be a jerk. And that starts with being honest about your limitations and then practicing, trying your hand at other areas. That's how you master the craft. With layouts, I tell my students, in fact, one of the assignments is for them to pick 2 favorite layouts from any comics and draw them as shapes. And a lot of people, I think, when you don't think about deconstructing a comic like that, it looks really daunting. You know, to look at a Chris Bichello Shade the Changing Man page, and it's just this beautiful kaleidoscopic series of panels. You can't imagine how we could think of that. We'll take it down to its basics. It's a lot of graphic shapes. So when you take things apart, they start to make more sense. And I recommend doing that, reverse engineering comic book pages too. I know Matt Fraction and Kelly Sue DeConnick are big fans of that. And I think that that's a great idea too, because so often people that want to write comics don't realize that a big part of writing comics is writing the art direction. And sometimes that's where they fall apart. They might have the pithy, clever dialogue, but they can't get what they see in their head into words on the page for a penciler to actually draw it. So that's where a really good editor comes in and helps them to figure out what they want to see. Because what you want to see and what you want to say are not always the same thing. Because again, comic book readers are smart, and it's always about what you want to leave for the reader to infer. What do you want the little breadcrumbs to be? Because comics are participatory. And that's when they work best, because they're intimate and it's about you and the page. Am I right, John? You're just nodding, and I know you have a lot to say.
No, but I'm staying out of your way as you pontificate, because what you're saying is absolutely right. And I'm nodding. You know, this is a radio tick of mine, because I'm sure people are like, Suntress, like, stop bobbing your head. And it's like, because I'm so used to doing 30 years of Chicago interviews in radio where I am nodding to encourage the person to continue with because I agree, or that's good, keep going. So again, folks, that's why John's head is on a swivel. So that,
but John has a lot of insightful things to say too, because John has asked a lot of questions. John has met a lot of cool people. And part of why people like John and I are still in the business is because we want to pay it forward. You know, I have a reputation of being a bossy editor. Well, guess what? If you want to be an editor, you have to be the boss. You have to not be afraid or get tired of nudging, because your job is to get the book done on time and to make everyone on the team look as good as possible. So you bet I got to be a little bossy.
Well, Ann says
Yeah.
your approach sounds so much more like a teammate. And
Yeah.
then Evil Mike says, big fan of Shelly's Kickstarters and
Oh,
your
thank
work in
you.
general. And then also says, outstanding. I hadn't thought about the proofing on paper at size stuff. I'm currently editing a book and wouldn't have thought of that. Well, there you go,
I'm
man.
so happy. I'm so happy to hear you say that. Listen, the other thing that's really important, as much as I love working on the computer, and I'm a big fan of Photoshop, InDesign, and Illustrator, my favorite tools, I mean, of course, the red pen. You know, I've got millions of red pens, but
Sure.
stapler.
Nice.
This is a workhorse stapler and a
Yeah,
black
okay.
and white printer.
Oh,
Those two things, you can change the world. I promise you. If you proofread your work in black and white, you will see tones and you can make better judgments about color, because the number one true editing crime about color is that there's too much on the page in comics. I am a purist. I got into comics because I loved Love and Rockets. I'm a big fan of black and white. Stray Bullets is my favorite comic. However, 9 times out of 10, there's too much color everywhere. And I try to remind my colorists that I work with that black and white are my favorite colors, and red.
I get it. No, Orson Welles used to say he hated color films because they were too pretty and they took away from the emotional impact that black and white would give you. And also, isn't it weird that even though they went to color film, there's just more realism? And I would say this about black and white comics as well. There's just a feeling of realism more with black and white comics. And also the spot color that you're doing and that you do in a lot of your off-register stuff, you know?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I see that one of my favorite freelancers
Yes.
conversation, Ryan Kelly, who I always describe as one of the ultimate pitch hitters in comics. And that's a huge compliment because I could always count on Ryan, whether he was drawing a book like the New York 4 or the New York 5 and did tremendous work in black and white, whether he was inking on Lucifer, whether he was drawing or inking on American Virgin, any time I was panicking about being late on the book, my first phone call was to Ryan Kelly because he never let me down, and probably has an equivalent record collection to mine because we both love Bow Wow Wow. And I think we traded tapes over the years. And yeah, just a cool person and a tremendous artist, and never let me down. And I can say on one hand, he's one of these, he's number one here, artists who I would work with again and again in a pinch. A true pro.
Am I remembering correctly? Was he one of the collaborators on Local?
Yes.
There you go. All right. Yeah, no, Ryan, absolutely. Longtime fan, man. I'm glad you're joining the conversation. That means a lot because, again, I'm a big Local fan. S. Cousins, 3905. I'm working on a comic right now, and man, trying to color it yourself when you're most comfortable in black and white is so difficult. I always end up overdoing it.
Well, my theory as an editor, again, I have all these maxims. When in doubt, leave it out. I always say, if you think there's too much there of anything, maybe too much texturizing, maybe too much negative space, it's good to take a step back from your work, look at it, put it on the floor, look at it from a different vantage point. I mean, maybe that sounds funny to people who have been spending their career on Photoshop, but print it out and look at it on paper.
Interesting.
I think that another thing that people forget with color is that, in my opinion, it's best used as a transitional device. So you want your color temperature to change from scene to scene. So that's what I think is missing in a lot of comics. If I go to the comic book store and flip through books when I'm just going to, pick up something on a whim, what I don't see anymore, which makes me sad, is a sharp contrast between warm and cool from scene to scene from a lot of publishers. And I think it's because a lot of times painters and colorists have their favorite palettes. They've got a paint box and they use these beautiful tones that they're known for, and that's it. And that can look great on one long extended scene, but there's a reason, especially in the periodical, why you don't want to have just one long narrative scene. It might work really well in a movie, but in a comic, you got to keep up the pace. And I feel like that's something that I see happen that I wish there was less of. Like, I want people to actually stop being so comfortable with the palette that has worked for them and remember to mix it up a little bit.
Because it reminds me of what bothered me in general in the 90s, and I can't quantify what it was, but I always felt like as beautiful as the art was, we were losing the story in a lot of those early and mid 90s comics. Vertigo was an exception, thankfully, with a lot of the people that were working over there. So, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. That an image could be too pretty, and again, you lose the storytelling in the process,
and you lose the atmosphere. You know, I feel like colors should be adding to the ambiance of it all. And if a comic doesn't have a pulse, to me, I get worried. You know, whatever knocks me out of a story, whether it's some line that a female character would never say, you know, and hey, I'm all for talented writers of any gender can write male and female characters. But if I'm reading a story and there's a female character and I know for a fact there's not a woman I've ever met that would say something like that, I'm out of the story. Same goes with the color and the lettering and the art. If I'm knocked out, the editor has a red flag. I'm waving the red flag, and I want to figure out why. Why was I just bumped out? There are a million different reasons. 100 FAQ, we cover things like this. And again, as Philip said so well in the first half hour, these are 100 tips, ways to make comics that work for me. Maybe 20 of them will work for you, John, and that would be a good ratio. Maybe 75. Whatever you do, take what works, come up with your own brand of rules and standards. But I believe that it's best to break the rules selectively. So when you learn the rules, or you learn a couple different editors' rules, and then go about breaking them, be selective about when you want to break them and have a really good reason, and make sure it's a story reason.
Before I let you go, I want to ask, how things are going editing wise, working with the not only the Bitter Root guys, but the last time you and I talked, Dave Lapham and the guys on American Crime, right?
American Caper, yes. In fact, I was
American Caper. Excuse me, everybody.
Caper, issue 4 just came out yesterday. It's phenomenal. It's an all Dave Lapham art issue. Unbelievable. I mean, what can I say about David Lapham that I haven't said a billion times before? I think he's the greatest American storyteller of our generation. And I continue to get knocked out every time he turns in a page. He's working on penciling issue 12 right now. Chris Anderson is right on his heels doing beautiful finishes. They are one hell of a team. So if you haven't checked it out, please do. We've got Lee Lowridge on color, who always gives a knockout scene change with his warm to cool ratio. We've got Tyler Boss on covers. I was just at Comics Pro, which is out here in LA. Yeah. And I spoke about working with Dark Horse on American Caper with Laszlo and Dan Hauser, who are terrific writers. And I opened up my chat today by saying, when I was asked to work with video game writers, I was dubious too. But these guys are writers to be reckoned with in comics, and I hope they write more comics. So having a ball.
Atta girl. That's excellent. Well done. Well, again, everybody, we've got just 2 days left of this Kickstarter for 100 FAQ on making comics. Shelly Bond, Philip Bond art, and really, you're learning from the best, everybody. So I can't recommend this enough, and I was so glad to see it and get in on the tail end of this and help get the word out. So way to go, Shell.
John, you're the best. Thank you so much once again, hosting just another fun conversation. And I look forward to doing many, many more. And next time, we have to share my number one favorite story where you got to meet Brian Ferry and I did not.
I was, I was talking to others about some of the other great rock people that I got to meet over the years, and John Hyatt and Ray Davies of the Kinks. And the guys from Squeeze, Different, and Tilbrook, two of my see Shell's more hardcore. I mean, you love your Britpop, don't get me wrong.
I do.
But yeah, I am, I'm the wuss Britpop guy.
Well, but then again, I love Duran Duran too. So like I do have my moments, right? I kind of go in there too. But John, you're the best. Thank you so much for sharing all the information, and thank you everyone who joined in live. It's been a blast. I have a lot of fun with John, but I have even more fun when John's crew joins us and asks such great questions. And really thank you to everyone who supported my work over the years. I also told the people at Comics Pro that even though I left Vertigo 10 years ago, they weren't getting rid of me. I'm making more comics now than ever and just loving every minute of it. So thank you for supporting our work.
Absolutely. Well, the good creative people know to get a good editorial hand, like the American Caper people from Dark Horse, like Bitterroot and what's going on at Image with our friends over at Bitterroot, David and
Sanford and Chuck. Yeah.
And Chuck, absolutely. Cool. So no, way to go, Shell. Thanks everybody for watching. Hey, it's a double feature today. Tonight I'm talking to Franco and Scoot. They've got a new book out of from Paper Cuts, Ninja Kaiju. They had me at hello with that kind of title. So we'll be talking about that tonight. Until next time, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.